Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind podcast. I'm your host, Stevie TPFL. It's January. It's the 3rd of January. It's 2016. It's Tuesday. We have 8 basketball games to talk about here tonight. I have a really weird echo on my end.
Okay.
I hear myself.
Okay. I think this happened last time. I believe I have to go to settings.
Oh yeah, it could be that. Set it to wherever you have your headphones. I plug mine straight into my mic.
Yep, that's what I have too. Sorry.
So make sure it says Yeti.
Yeah, microphone says Yeti stereo. Are you still getting it? Headphones.
Test
Oh,
one.
okay. Yes. Okay. Now check it. 3.
Test 1, 2. Yeah, that's much better.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Under speakers, I have to put Yeti also.
It just hates us.
Yeah,
but I started to talk and introduce the show, and I was like, oh, well, that's not gonna work.
I had to do that last time too when we did this. So
all right, no big deal. All right, we're gonna start again here.
Sounds good.
Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind podcast. I'm your host, Stevie TPFL. It's January. It's 3rd of January. It's a Tuesday. It's 2017. I keep wanting to say 2016, but it is officially 2017. We have 8 basketball games to talk about here tonight. An interesting slate. It's a slate that's all over the place and a lot of injury news that we're going to have to kind of monitor up to lock. And joined today by Brett Harfield. You guys know him more as Killa B. I messed it up, didn't I? I knew I was going to mess it up.
No, you're pretty good. I mean, everybody, even on, I'd say over half of my male people put the D at the end of my name, so I'm used to it by now. So I just it just rolls off. So yeah, Hartfield. I mean, yeah, it's very easy to do, but yeah, it's Hartfield without the D, but no big deal.
I knew I was going to screw it up, but I'm excited to have you back, Killa B. Last podcast we did, we crushed it. So football season's over. It's winding down for us now, and it's time to really shift gears to basketball. I know that basketball is the sport that you talked about that you really enjoy, so I'm sure this is a type of the season where you're just ready to get into basketball.
Yeah, I mean, now that we're almost done with the NFL season, it's nice to have that crossover because you do get a lot of people dipping their toes into NBA from NFL. But yeah, you won't be seeing that as much, obviously, with only the playoffs. But I mean, even with these wild card and the conference games, I mean, there's still huge $1 million tournaments for NFL. So you'll still get plenty of action midweek NBA wise also. So I wouldn't worry about that too much.
All right, well, we got a nice little 8-game NBA slate. We're going to jump right in. We have Minnesota at Philadelphia, 203.5 total here. Minnesota favored by 4. The only injury news that we have here really is on the Philly side. Sergio Rodriguez is doubtful for this game. Let's start with Minnesota. What are you looking at here for the Timberwolves?
Yeah, so, I mean, I feel like a guy like Towns. I mean, Towns is 9,900 on DraftKings. It's gonna be tough to pay that price there. But on FanDuel, where he's cheap, I really like him against Philly. I would really like to see. I'm almost positive Embiid will play this game. But yeah, I mean, if Embiid's playing, you can't like Towns as much. But on the other side of the ball, I would rather play Embiid over on FanDuel, even more so than Karl Anthony. So, and then when you just look at the wings, I don't know, Wiggins has been playing phenomenal. Again, more of a FanDuel play. But yeah, on DraftKings, I'm kind of looking at, I think McConnell's a lock still, only healthy point guard for Philly right now currently. And Ersan Ilyasova has been playing really well. So kind of want to have some exposure to Ersan and McConnell on the Philly side. And then, yeah, Minnesota probably get most of my exposure on FanDuel because I don't really like their DraftKings prices.
Yeah, I can definitely get behind that. On the Philly side, one guy that I wanted to mention, not the greatest matchup in the world for Covington, but he gets a nice little 3.3% bump in usage without Sergio Rodriguez on the floor this season. The sample size is really solid at 309 minutes. So we're seeing that nice little bump. We're seeing more fantasy points per minute out of him, which is a nice little bump. So tournament only because the matchup isn't great here. He'll probably see a lot of Andrew Wiggins. We don't love that matchup. I definitely agree with you on Embiid. And if Rodriguez officially gets ruled out, TJ McConnell, just too cheap everywhere, and you can just kind of plug him in there. Minnesota side, like you mentioned, Towns expensive. Wiggins, even though he's been playing great, he's expensive. Zach LaVine, tougher to fit in. Could we really look at a guy like maybe like Ricky Rubio here?
Yeah, so Rubio, if you see his minutes, man, they fluctuate big time. So I think you can only look at him in tournament. There's times where he's been playing, 24, 25 minutes, and then there's times where he gets the 30, 35 minutes. So I feel like to really feel confident in him returning price here, you're going to need low 30 minutes, and you just haven't been seeing that as consistent as the other starters. So for me, he's kind of like exclusively a tournament play, but I mean, he should be able to easily get off versus a Philly team that, like I said, only has one point guard really in their roster. One thing that I'm seeing here, Stevie, is Jahlil Okafor is dealing with a hamstring issue. I know he was a game time decision last game. It'd be interesting if he gets pulled off the floor. I would love Embiid a lot more. No, I mean, with Okafor on the floor, Embiid's been playing like the 4 spot instead of the 5 spot. So just further away from the basket, Embiid is getting a bit more usage being away from the basket, but less rebounds, less blocks. So we'd rather have Embiid obviously playing 5.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I had that written down. I don't know why I didn't mention it, but yeah, I definitely agree there. That's kind of it. If you want cheap exposure to the bigs from Minnesota, I always like Gorgie Dang. He's still cheap enough where you can get that cheap exposure to the Philly front court. It's really bad. So if you want the gorgeous dong, you're probably looking at 30 to 35 fantasy points. The upside's not tremendously high. He put up 33.5 against this team earlier this year. So that's what you're kind of looking at from Gorgie Dang here.
Yeah, and this is a 8-game slate where I'm not in love with a lot of games, so I'm going to have plenty of exposure to this Minnesota-Philly game. And really the only other game that fully interests me from like a game stacking point of view is the Sacramento at Denver game. So there's a lot of slower paced teams and defensive-minded teams in this slate. So, I mean, you have San Antonio, you have Memphis, you have Miami, you have Utah, so Dallas. You have plenty of slow defensive-minded teams. So this game really stands out kind of on an island as a game to get some really good exposure, faster pace too.
Yeah, third fastest pace projected on the slate here as far as team pace goes, so I can definitely get behind that. We move to a game that, the pace is probably going to be right in the middle of the road here. Indy at Detroit, 203 total here. Detroit favored by 4. The injury news here is Jeff Teague is questionable. Rodney Stuckey already ruled out for this game. And then on the Detroit side, I don't know if it even matters, but Aaron Baines is questionable towards the doubtful side. We'll have to see how that plays out. But like I said, I don't think that really affects too much. We'll start with Indy here. What are we doing with the Pacers in this situation?
Yeah, so a lot's going to really depend on Jeff Teague's status. If he does go, I love Jeff Teague in this spot. Yep. Detroit's been really bad against the point guard all year. That's kind of where you attack him. So I really like Teague. If he doesn't go, then I think Aaron Brooks becomes a must play. On DraftKings, he's the bare minimum, so at $3K, I think he would be a must play at that price.
Yeah, one name that I want to mention here, I was doing my research a little while ago, and the name that kept coming up on my sheet was Paul George. And the fantasy points haven't been fantastic without Teague, but anytime you get a bump over 4% usage, you have to consider that 4.5% bump without Teague on the floor and no Stuckey. That's a big number, and I definitely agree with you, Aaron Brooks. We get news that Teague's out, you just kind of plug him in. He's just too cheap. He could even be your pivot from McConnell if you don't like McConnell in that situation. But both those guys definitely play. What's your thoughts here on Paul George? I don't think I've rostered him a lot this year, but that usage, that's a big bump.
Yeah, so, again, the way you attack Detroit is normally at the point guard. I feel like with how well Thaddeus Young's done the last 2 weeks, I'd be more likely to keep rolling with Thaddeus. His minutes have been pretty consistent in the mid-30s, and he's finally he's putting up over 10 shots the last 6 games. So been getting consistent shots off. I would rather go towards Thaddeus. I don't know. I just haven't seen Paul George kind of take over games this year. So I'll probably stay away from that. But, I'm more of a cash game guy, so I think you'll get him for really low ownership. Ownership will probably jump to Paul George, though, if Jeff Teague's out. And so I think Thaddeus Young, it would be a good pivot, too.
I definitely like that call. Now, on the Detroit side, I don't know where you stand on this, but me and Siege have been talking about this a lot. Tobias Harris moved to the bench was the best thing that ever happened to fantasy. Like, his shot attempts since moving to the bench. Now, we could throw out the game against Atlanta. He started that game, but 13, 15, 14, 14 in the games that he's moved to the bench. He's getting so much usage. He's getting the shots. I'm gladly going to pay $6,200 for him against Indy.
Yeah, I mean, me and you kind of like these bench guys that come off the bench in second units. So yeah, and the best part about it is his minutes really hasn't dropped either. So I mean, I do like the way they're utilizing him. Obviously, usually against second team competition when he comes in, and then he kind of just runs out the half. So yeah, I don't mind Tobias Harris. It's kind of getting to a price where I don't think I'll buy him on DraftKings. I'd probably get my exposure over on FanDuel though.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to talk me off Tobias Harris. Like you said, I love these bench guys that get usage. If you guys listen to the podcast every day, I talk about it because just people overlook these situations. Tobias Harris was like 7% owned on Sunday coming back off the bench. Like, people saw that he went back to the bench. Oh, time to fade him. Yeah, right. That's the time to jump on. Anyway, don't get me too riled up on bench guys. What are we doing with the rest of Detroit here?
Yeah, I don't mind Andre Drummond, actually. He's kind of been somewhat consistent here of late, as consistent as Andre Drummond can be. Again, he's getting more shots off. In his last four, he's had 19 attempts, 12 attempts, 13 attempts, 15 attempts. So I like how much he's shooting the ball. So, I mean, I don't mind him. I guess it's not like something I'm locking him in everywhere, but there's a lot of different centers I think I will have exposure to tomorrow.
Center's actually kind of wide open tonight. So I really like that. It's just there's so many options, and that always makes for a fun slate because center is such a position that has so much upside and ceiling that, like on a site like DK where you can sometimes fit in 4 or 3 guys because you have the power forward. And I know you play over on Fantasy Draft where you can play 4 or 5 centers some nights, and this is a night that we're definitely going to be exploring those options. If I don't mention KCP, I'll get a million tweets. I don't hate this spot for him. Just the guy, anytime you get a guy playing in the high 30s in minutes every night, shooting the ball 10-plus times, you have to like him. This isn't a CV like sign-off KCP spot, but this is definitely a spot that he could go for 30-plus fantasy points. Any KCP love there?
Yeah, his minutes have been super consistent. And I mean, again, we're talking about a slate that has a lot of defensive teams. Indiana has been really bad kind of across every position. So I think KCP's floor is really safe. Like, I think you can pencil in for 25 points. And, right now, his last 5 games, he's been between 30 to 40 minutes. So, yeah, I like that floor for sure.
Yeah, I didn't know if you knew. I'm a KCP whisperer, man. Like, I nail this guy so much. Not so much this year. I've been a little rocky this year, but last year I think I got every 40-point game right. So we'll move on to Utah at Boston. 201 total here. Boston favored by 6. George Hill is questionable. Dante Exum is questionable. Alec Burke returned. I think he only played 3 minutes as a return. We're going to have to see those minutes really come back before we even start worrying about that. On the Boston side, Marcus Smart is questionable and Zeller is questionable. Both these guys in the hospital on Sunday. We'll have to really pay attention to that. Be really interested to see, 2 days ago, these guys are in the hospital. They're really going to be back in game shape here for this game. But you mentioned a lot of slow-paced games. We know Utah just plays so slow. This is projected the slowest pace, and it's projected the slowest pace by quite a bit. What are we doing here just overall with this game?
Yeah, this is not a game that I'll be heavily targeting, but where I'll probably just try and grab some Utah exposure. Utah played today, so they'll be on a back-to-back here. I think what I like the most here is probably Rudy Gobert. Been really consistent. He had another nice game today. I feel really safe clicking on his name. I mean, he's been returning 5x. It seems like almost every single day, and You'll notice too, DraftKings for some reason always underprices big guys. So yeah, like when you talk about fantasy draft, I mean, there's a lot of times. I mean, you could seriously roll out 5 centers on fantasy draft. So it's been one of those things where it's tough. Like if you play DraftKings, like it's tough not to just go double center in a lot of different lineups.
Yeah, double center is always a hot floor situation. You being a cash game guy, you talking about double centers. Notorious talks about it when he's on the podcast all the time. Like that's just a thing for you guys, and getting the ceiling is there as well. I'm with you. I'm not really in love with this game. The one tournament play that I do want to talk about in this game, if we get news that Marcus Smart is out, is Avery Bradley. He's 5,900. We get that dynamic pricing on DK. That's just too cheap. He's going to shoot the ball a lot. He's going to play a lot of minutes. I know it's a tough matchup, but he's averaging right around a fantasy point per minute without Marcus Smart on the floor this year. So that's one guy that I like in tournaments. And you saw what he did against Cleveland the other night with no Marcus Smart.
Yeah, and like these games are going to be slower pace. I'm never going to buy like the highest priced player on a team like Boston. So yeah, I do like to go with a guy like Avery Bradley who could get hot. I'd more or less like try and go with some type of cheap exposure. So yeah, Avery Bradley, I'd be more than okay with that in tournaments. And then like someone like Rudy Gobert, yeah, his floor is going to be there consistently, but you might not want to be clicking on his name too much. Tournament wise, like it seems like he's never a guy that is shooting more than 10 times. So his rebounding is consistent, but unless he returns you like 5 or 6 blocks, he doesn't really have a high ceiling.
Yeah, you want him in high situations where people are going to be driving to the basket a lot to get those blocks. So I don't know if that necessarily is a spot. Isaiah Thomas does drive a lot, but this is going to be much, much slower, especially just one of these games. But let's move on to another game that this total has me a little like, I don't know what to do with this game. We have Toronto, we have San Antonio. This game's in San Antonio. We have a 211.5 total. San Antonio favored by 5.5. On the Toronto side, the only injury news that we have is Patrick Patterson. On the San Antonio side, they're the Spurs. Just pay attention throughout the day. I'm just going to say that every day, just so you guys know. But we'll start with Toronto. They got a tough matchup. San Antonio here. We're looking at 2 of the best defensive teams in the league. San Antonio allows the 3rd fewest fantasy points and 6th fewest fantasy points for Toronto. So, like, we got good defensive teams. We have an 8-game slate. Did we just write this game off?
Well, I kind of am along the same thinking as you. Like, I'm very surprised at how high this over-under is. Obviously, I'm fading the Toronto side, but I think having San Antonio exposure is more than okay here. I have them scoring over 3 points more than their season average. So, yeah, I really like San Antonio's spot. LMA has been really consistent the last few weeks. So if you're kind of worried about maybe a Kawhi the Kawhi situation, I would more likely go to LaMarcus Aldridge. But again, his price has gone up $1,200 on DraftKings in the last week. So it's kind of like getting to that situation where is his usage, is this going to be a thing or a trend, or is it going to start going back down once Kawhi gets going again? So normally San Antonio is a team that I don't choose a lot of guys on, just because you never know. And then plus in a later start, you never know who's going to sit down, and they'll have obviously late guys sitting down. So yeah, maybe LaMarcus Aldridge here, but I don't really have too much outside of that.
Yeah, I will say, guys, if you see a tournament get taken down, my name's at the top with a Toronto San Antonio stack. Like, it's going to happen. Like, there's a 211 total in San Antonio. I'm stacking this game. Like, I have to do it in a tournament. It's just, this total has me thrown off. And if it bets down throughout the day, maybe that's, something that we'll see. But 211.5 total, one of the highest totals that we have so far on the slate. The one other guy that I want to mention for San Antonio is just, it's all about minutes with this guy, but Pau Gasol, he's been actually kind of consistent, and we know that he has that potential of 40-plus points and 61 on DK. Like, we talk about, playing these centers, like, he's going to be super under-owned here, and we like to attack Toronto with centers and power forward. So I like the LaMarcus Aldridge call. Pau Gasol, the minutes. If he gets minutes, he's going to have a good game.
Yeah, I feel like they give Paul Gasol minutes when they need him, like when, Aldridge or you have Kawhi sitting out. But I don't know. I don't feel like he gets consistently more than like a half a game a run when they're healthy. So if they're fully healthy, I probably won't be going towards Gasol. But yeah, he has been looking great. I mean, the last game, so just 2 games ago, he played 37 minutes. I think that's the most amount of minutes he's played on the year. So that would make me steer away from him.
And they've had a couple days off, though. Give him a couple days off, coach. No problem.
Yeah.
Washington at Dallas, no total in this game. Darren Williams is the reason why. He has a questionable tag here. And then JJ Barea will remain out for this game. We already have that news, which is always a good sign. It's a real question mark here with Dallas because if we get news that Darren Williams sits here, that changes everything.
Yep. Yeah, this is my favorite team to target tomorrow will be Dallas. So notice Dirk Nowitzki's price at 4,100.
Oh, man.
He played 24 minutes last game, and if Darren Williams is off the floor, he's going to get a ton of usage. So he also went 3 for 12 last game. So he wasn't making his shot whatsoever, but this guy is a point per minute guy. He for sure will be a point per minute guy without Darren Williams on the floor. So yeah, I really like Dirk for cheap value. And I mean, I like a lot of different guys. I mean, Seth Curry should have the ball in his hands quite a bit with no Darren Williams. So I'm kind of hoping Darren Williams is out and we get some cheap exposure in this game.
Yeah, we can definitely, because this is a game like we talked about the Philly value. If GFT gets ruled out, we've talked about the Indy value. This is another game. If Darren Williams gets ruled out, like we have value here. You mentioned Seth Curry, a guy like Harrison Barnes, where his price has kind of priced him out, but people are going to overlook the fact that without Darren Williams on the floor and without JJ Barea, this guy's a 30.7% usage rate with these guys off the floor this season. And it's massive. It's 404 minutes. That's plenty of sample size. So I like the Dirk call. I hadn't thought about Dirk, but the usage will definitely be there. So I could definitely get behind some Dirk Nowitzki. Love Seth Curry, man. Like if we get news that Williams and Barea, Seth Curry, buddy. Shooting guard eligible. Yeah, load me up.
Yeah, and Washington was in a super competitive game tonight, so they could be coming in a little bit tired. They played Houston, so I wouldn't be clicking on John Wall's name at all. I mean, he's now 10-6 on DraftKings, so I mean, if you want to get some exposure, I would do it on FanDuel. But yeah, this should be more of a tired Washington team. But yeah, I really like Dallas here.
Let's talk about Washington. You just mentioned coming off a game against Houston. Not a big flight there, if you even fly. But what are we doing here with the Washington side?
Yeah, again, there's going to be a lot of different centers that I have exposure to, and Marcin Gortat will be one of them. Dallas seems to be always weak down low. Until they get healthy with the big men, you can definitely attack Salah down low. So I don't mind Gortat at all.
Yeah, tired guys, Otto Porter, Bradley Beal, jump shooters. That's never a good thing. So I don't see Dallas blowing anybody out, so there is some value here. But I feel like you said, Marcin Gortat, probably a good guy to get exposure to. Markieff Morris continues to be so cheap.
Yeah.
He'll pull your hair out, but you got to have some tournament exposure here. Like he only
have you seen his just his first quarters or his first halves on the year? Like compare his first halves to his second halves. It's like the guy puts up no fantasy points whatsoever. A lot of times, like his very first run, there's a good chance he never touches the ball. So I don't know what it is with this guy, but man, he puts some stinkers in the first half and then just runs it in the second.
We could, if we get any news that like Bradley Beal or any of these guys that have been questionable, like he had an ankle injury coming into Monday night. I don't know what his minutes were. I don't have it right in front of me, but if we get news that maybe he sits or something, then you could look at Marcus Thornton for some value. Beal played 35 minutes against Houston, so that could be a situation.
And I mean, this Dallas team is kind of morphing into a different team. Like if they don't have, Darren Williams and Dirk Nowitzki's back. So, I mean, they can be definitely exposed at the 2 spot, at the 4 spot if Curry and Dirk are getting their minutes back.
Oh, buddy, here we go. All right, moving on to another situation that we really have to pay attention to the injury news. We have Miami at Phoenix. Hassan Whiteside having an eye issue. He's already been ruled out for this game. He can't fly right now, so he's out. Justice Winslow already ruled out for this game. Goran Dragic is questionable but expected to play, and Dion Waiters practiced on Monday, so he could return here. A lot of stuff we got to pay attention to. Me personally, I would love for Dion Waiters to take one more game off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is going to be another spot just like Dallas where we get cheap exposure. We're going to have probably, 9 healthy bodies, maybe 8 healthy bodies for Miami. So this is a spot where minutes are pretty guaranteed. I like Tyler Johnson, Wayne Ellington, Josh Richardson, James Johnson. So, you can throw a lot of these guys. I probably won't go Magruder, even though Magruder is still getting 30-some minutes at 3K on DraftKings. But, the guy I guess he has put up a 30-point day. So, he can go 10X at that 3K. But I don't know, man. He just does not seem like a good player. But, with such a short bench, he's going to get 30 minutes. So, I think all these Miami guys are in play.
Yeah, I really want Dion Waiters. One more game, Dion. Dragic has a 34% usage rate without Winslow, Whiteside, and Waiters being on the floor. So, I want him to sit one more game. James Johnson, the guy that I'm really going to be targeting heavy here, he should play a ton of minutes in this game. He can play the 1 through 4. So, just his range here is going to be a lot of minutes. And 5,500, you think people will stay away at that price?
Both him and Josh Richardson really got a price hike. So, I think it's warranted. But I still think they're cheaper than what they should be because of their roles. Their roles in this offense. Now, Goran Dragic is questionable. I don't know if you mentioned that at the top, but if Goran Dragic, I think he's been dealing with back spasms. So, that's something that comes and goes. I had back spasms when I was 18 years old, and I haven't had them since. But it's a weird thing, man. You can be doing everyday normal activities and all of a sudden you're just done. I don't know. If Dragic is out, you can just load. I'm going to have probably 2 to 3 Miami guys in a lot of lineups if Dragic is out.
Yeah. They said he's expected to play here, and we'll just have to monitor that news. But if he plays, huge usage. If he's off, then, man, all those guys, those guards, just be locked into some big minutes there. So we'll have to.
One thing that I do want to say is Tyler Johnson's role really doesn't change no matter who's in or out. He still is the 6th man, comes in for basically 28 to 32 minutes every game. So his role has not changed in this offense no matter who's healthy or who's out. So that's just something that a lot of people expect him to start. Well, he's never going to start, So and I like him in his role as the 6th man guy.
I will say, if we do get news that the Dragon is out, Josh Richardson gets the biggest bump in this offense. Like you mentioned, Johnson doesn't really move around, but Josh Richardson gets a massive bump, and it's going to be extra shots. No Whiteside. That's going to open up the floor for Miami. They could go small here. Phoenix could go small to match them. What are we doing with the Suns?
Yeah, the Suns are kind of tricky for me. I haven't been right on them a lot. The Phoenix guards kind of remind me of the Denver forwards. So, it's kind of like whose day is it going to be today? So, to me, I exclusively kind of put them in GPP spots. I felt like I was pretty good with Bledsoe early on, but now he's kind of, I don't know, man. His minutes are kind of coming and going. And, I think it's kind of like whoever's kind of hot definitely gets the minutes down the stretch. And so, Brandon Knight, his minutes kind of is coming and going off between all the way up to 28 to 10 minutes. So, it's for me, it's a stay away. This is a slower pace game for them. Miami's just not a team that you want to attack.
Without Whiteside, don't you think that they'll play more towards Phoenix pace, this game being in Phoenix? I think this is going to be one of the faster paced games on the slate.
Yeah, I do like the pace definitely a lot more without Whiteside. I would like it a lot more if Dragic was going to play because Dragic really pushes the ball up pretty confidently.
Revenge spot too.
Yeah.
Narrative.
Oh yeah. So if he goes, and he'll want to go for sure. I would be all in on Dragic. Yeah. I really like Dragic's spot for sure.
I pulled up the Phoenix game. They're playing the Clippers. We talked about this game on the podcast yesterday. I said I can't get TJ Warren right. I said that he was a clear fade, and of course he has 30 fantasy points with 8 minutes to go. So that's if there's one guy that I just can't get right this year, it's TJ Warren. But the minutes, like you said, it really just goes off of who's hot. Like whoever's hot for Phoenix. That's why all these guys, every single one of them, are just tournament plays. Like every single one. The one guy that I could consider if we didn't have a bunch of centers on this slate would be Tyson Chandler. Like he should own this game with no Whiteside. So the one guy, like if you wanted a cheap center for cash games, but you still can't trust the minutes enough to play him in cash. So I feel like Phoenix every night, tournament only.
Yeah, totally agree. And I don't really know what's going on with Alex Len. Alex Len is still getting minutes, been pretty consistently around the 20-minute mark. But, man, he just really – we haven't seen him hit like a ceiling where he's just, like, shooting the ball quite a bit. That's the type of guy where, man, he goes on stretches where he's hot. And then, when Tyson Chandler's out and he's seeing like 25, 30 minutes, like I love a guy like that. But yeah, again, kind of stay away. These guys are splitting minutes. And then with the guards, you never know who's going to go off. So I'd stay away outside of tournaments.
All right, let's get to another fun game. We have Sacramento at Denver. Rudy Gay questionable, Ty Lawson questionable, Kenneth Faried questionable, and Arthur questionable. Faried set out on Monday night, so we'll have to pay attention to that. That's a back injury, so his minutes have really been all over the place. He's really not in play anyway, but kind of locks in Jokic to his minutes if he can stay on the floor. We'll start with Sacramento here. What are we doing with the Kings?
Yeah, so the Kings I really like. This is going to be a perfect boogie spot, and I think Jokic is only a tournament play just because of DeMarcus. It could be a spot where Jokic is on the court for seriously 15 minutes and just in foul trouble. So, love Cousins. He'll be the top guy on the slate for sure. And with all this injury news, you're going to still want to get some exposure here on Sacramento. And Matt Barnes, man, he's been really consistent with his minutes the last few games here. So only 4,200. He's even cheaper on FanDuel. I think he's like the bare min over there. But yeah, coming off of 29 minutes and 33 minutes. I really like Matt Barnes. And then even Garrett Temple is kind of getting minutes, but I won't have as much exposure to Garrett Temple. But again, cheap at 3,600.
Yeah, if Rudy Gay gets ruled out, you just click Cousins' name in every lineup. His usage is it's ridiculously high without Rudy Gay. It's over 40%. That's getting into talks of like Russell Westbrook high. Like it's 43%. I think Westbrook's usage this season is like 45% or something high like that. But yeah, Cousins becomes an automatic. If Gay's out, Matt Barnes, like you mentioned, I can definitely get on board with that. Collison, 4,500. If Lawson gets ruled out, could we play Collison here?
Yeah. So the only thing that I'm seeing like going through this slate right now with you is just like I don't like a lot of expensive guys, So I think Cousins is going to be so highly owned, and then there's not a lot of mid-tier guys that I like. So yeah, I do like Collison. I guess he's only 4,500. Again, cheaper over on FanDuel, but. Saw 38 minutes of run last game. That's ridiculous. If you get anywhere near 30 minutes of run, you're happy with him. So, and he's coming back off an injury. Great tournament play, no doubt. But yeah, really like this spot, especially if we get news that Rudy Gay's out.
Yeah, man. Lawson sits too. You mentioned Garrett Temple. Shooting guards against Denver is a thing. It's just there's so much value on this slate. Like I think the value plays are gonna ownership wise are just gonna be so spread out. This is gonna be such a fun slate to play. Like just going through the slate and everything. It's just gonna be one of those days.
Agreed. You're gonna have to hit with like mid-tier guys because outside of Boogie, there's really no extreme talented guys on this slate or expensive guys on the slate. So you're gonna have to. Boogie's gonna be really popular with all the value. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I think Wall's going to be popular with the value too, and we had talked about him being a stay away because of the back-to-back playing a bunch of minutes, and like I think it's going to work to our advantage here today. So, yeah.
Would you are you ballsy enough to go with a Nikola Jokic, or are you going to stay away from that?
Kind of have to, right? Like if you're playing tournaments on the slate, like his price makes him in play. Like if he stays on the floor, we're looking at 40-point upside.
Yeah, and this is probably, I mean, between this and the Minnesota Philly game, I mean, these are the two games that you really want to target. Should have a lot of back and forth, great pace in this game. So again, like I can never get the Denver forwards right, but you're gonna want some exposure to the Wilson Chandlers, the Will Bartons, and the wing guys here. So
I think the most interesting play is Wilson Chandler. You had mentioned him. We have no Fareed. We have a guy that if Jokic gets in trouble, this guy he can play all over the place. Like we're looking at 30-point upside here, and a lot of minutes for Wilson Chandler, Gallinari. Both these guys should play a ton of minutes in this game.
Yeah. So is Fareed already ruled out?
No, he's questionable. He missed Monday's game. He missed Monday's game, and Nurkic actually got a bunch of minutes.
Okay. Yeah, because if Fareed is out, Nurkic becomes really nice. Because if Nurkic, they didn't start Nurkic, right? He would have came off the bench.
No, he came off the bench. He's played 21 minutes. There's a minute and 30 seconds to go, and he scored 32 DK points.
Right. So he'll be matched up a lot versus Kosta Koufos, which I mean is a spot he should dominate. But like I haven't rostered him in probably a month since since he was losing all of his minutes. So I don't know, but it's a great spot. Like if he gets 25 minutes a run, he should dominate.
Yeah, and you got to think Darrell Arthur's dealing with the knee injury. He's going to be questionable. He missed Monday's game too. Like there's only so many minutes, and if Jokic gets into foul trouble, like I feel like this is a slate that Nurkic he should be super low owned, and he's 3,100. Like I think he's definitely in play for tournaments.
Yeah, again, I feel like we've been talking about so many guys below 4K. It's just all value guys. So, what do you think about like a Danilo Gallinari? It seems like he's been pretty consistent. His floor is there, but yeah, again, 6K. So he really hasn't been returning that price. So I don't know what wing player for Denver are you most likely to click on here?
I would definitely play Wilson Chandler more than I would play Gallinari because, like, we know Wilson Chandler can fill up the stat sheet everywhere, right? Like, he's a guy that doesn't have to score points, but he can definitely put up the points. And, like, there's just if Fareed's out again, like, he can play the 4. Like, he can just play, the 2 through the 4. So, like, Wilson Chandler, a guy that should play a ton of minutes. Yeah,
totally agree. I really think Jokic is that type of guy that could take you down a tournament, though. It's like, I mean, he's the type of guy that, he could get like you 15 minutes, or he could produce 30 awesome minutes here. I mean, Sacramento is a spot where you want to target big guys. So, and I feel like there's been a lot of back and forth with Sacramento lately with bigs, so it might happen. And who knows? Like maybe they go double big in this game. Potentially, I don't know. You think they would ever start Nurkic at the 4? Probably not. He would have to be coming off the bench here.
Yeah, I think they'd start Chandler before they'd start him.
Yeah, I think they're done with the whole Nurkic and Jokic thing. I think they put that to bed a long time ago. So
I definitely agree there. And then we get to move on to the 10:30 game, the game that's going to be the hammer game, and it's no slouch, man. It's Memphis at LA. Like, we have news that we got to pay attention to, and Marc Gasol, he can miss this game. He's questionable. He's the only questionable mark that we have for Memphis, but, like, that's a big question mark.
Yeah, again, we got all this value. We want to spend our money, and Gasol would be the perfect guy to be, spending our money on. If he's out, though, I mean, give me all the JaMychal Green and Zach Randolph. I mean, bigs. I mean, every spot on the floor you can dominate LA, but I mean, with no Gasol, Randolph and JaMychal, they've been kind of beasting. So, but yeah, Mike Conley. Mike Conley's going to be really popular in this slate. I mean, there's just so much value. So
can I let me give the caution for Mike Conley. Okay. It's only 139 minute sample size, but his points per minute go down and his usage go down without Marc Gasol. So just want to throw the question, throwing the big question mark out there. I think it's a lot to do with Zach Randolph, because Zach Randolph takes so much usage when he's on the floor. Like, you give the guy the ball, he's going to shoot. I love Zebo. Like, if Zebo played 30 minutes a game like he did a couple of years ago, we'd talk about him every night, but like 24 to 25 minutes. But no Gasol here. I love that Zebo call.
Yeah, I'm seriously looking at this slate from a whole. Like, where am I going to spend my money? And I'm just like, man, I feel like there's going to be a lot of lineups where I'm going to have, 1,500 left over and be like, okay, now I have to roster a big name player that I don't want to. So The more and more that I'm looking at the slate, the more I'm going to be taking chances at expensive guys that normally I wouldn't, that are probably in slower pace games. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it's going to hinge on injuries. I think Zach Randolph's in play no matter what, but I think he becomes almost a must own if there's no Marc Gasol. So.
Yeah, and I definitely like him. You mentioned JaMychal Green. Conley's price is kind of that mid-range. Like, what do we think of Conley here? Like, I know I threw the caution. If we get news that Marc Gasol plays, I think he's more in play then.
Is he on some type of minutes restriction? Because I don't know what they're doing with his rotations lately. The last 4 games, 29 minutes, 26 minutes, 29 minutes, 23 minutes. He's only had 1 game in the last 10 over 30 minutes. So it's just like, man,
even more of a caution.
Yeah, his ceiling just. I mean, this is a guy that's over a point per minute. So you're getting really good usage, but why is he only playing a little bit over half the game? Like, I don't get it. So I feel like until he gets like in the 30-minute area, like he doesn't have much of a ceiling. But I mean, again, he is only 6,500 on DraftKings, so really good price still.
Yeah, and some of those games are really close games, so I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's tough to say.
Yeah, interesting slate. I mean, I'm looking now at like all the expensive guys, and a guy like Paul George does stand out to me. Like I'm gonna have to have some exposure to Paul George.
Before we move on here, anybody on the Lakers side?
Yeah, I would probably lean towards Randall if Gasol's out, because Zebo is too old to stop anybody, and Randall should dominate. Basically, Randall is the younger Zebo. I mean, he kind of got the same body size and whatnot, but Randall should eat in that matchup.
Oh yeah, I definitely like Julius Randle. One tournament play that if you want to get off all the chalk here. If Nick Young continues to shoot the ball well, he'll continue to put up 25-plus fantasy points. He's done that in 3 of the last 4 games. So at 4,100, if you want to move off some of these chalkier options, I don't hate that for tournaments.
Yeah, normally, again, LA guards are something that I usually stay away from unless one's hurt. So, yeah, I mean, Nick Young, he is a perfect tournament option, though, because when he gets hot, he's not afraid to put them up. So, yeah, I mean, last game, 9 threes, and he made 7 of them. So he's got a nice ceiling there.
Yeah, there's games that he'll attempt 10-plus threes. Like, that's just those are the guys that Nick Young of the world are the guys that can win you tournaments, and nobody in their right mind is going to play Nick Young against Memphis on this slate where we have so much value. So if you want a tournament flyer, there you go.
Yeah, I love LA when they're playing in like a faster style pace game. This is gonna be such a slow game again. Like I just normally I'll probably look towards the bigs here on both sides and then leave it as that. So Randall on one side, and then JaMychal and Zach Randolph or Marc Gasol on the other side.
All right, well, that's going to do it here for the game-by-game breakdown. I'm a jerk, and I forgot to tell you that we play a game before we started, and I'm throwing it in right at the end here. So every day we're using DraftKings pricing and DraftKings scoring here. Every day we pick 3 guys, and it's a snake draft style. We have a guy that we project to go under 4X. That's over 7K, so type like a bust type play.
Okay.
Our favorite 5X play and our favorite 6X play. And since you're the guest here and you just got this thrown upon you, I'm going to let you go first.
Okay. So question, is it a draft style, like where we just state what we think and then go? Or
yeah, we're doing it's a snake. So you'll go, and then I'll take 2, and then you'll take 2, and then I'll take the last one.
Okay. So my 6X guy will be Dirk Nowitzki.
Dirk?
Yeah. 4,100. I mean, he's way underpriced, and I think he's going to get a lot more minutes. And then plus, if Darren Williams out, the usage just goes way up.
All right. The guy that I'm going with the bust here, I'm taking it right off the bat. I'm going with John Wall. At 10-6, I have a really tough time seeing John Wall hit, if there's anybody that's going to bust on the slate, I feel like he's the guy.
Right, and I think he just got up for so much with the last game going up against James Harden. Like, I think he comes in with tired legs. So, yeah, I like that.
I hope so. And then I'm gonna take my 6X guy, and it's James Johnson. I love this spot for him.
Okay. Yeah. That's I mean, Miami, yeah, I'm gonna get a lot of exposure to Miami for sure for value. So yeah, really like that spot. Let's see here. I'll go with my bust. We'll just do a Toronto Kyle Lowry going up against San Antonio, 8,400. I feel like he's still priced a little too high here going against the slower pace. And he's been hot of late, so I think he's still going to be somewhat popular, but I'm going to stay away from him.
If you would have said DeRozan, you would have made my day, but you had to say Lowry anyway. All right, you got your 5X guy. I got my 5X guy left, so you get first pick at the 5X guy.
Yeah, let's go Joel Embiid for 5X. I'm going to want plenty of exposure to Embiid now that I see how much value's out there. So hopefully, he's playing the 5 more than the 4. Anytime Jahlil Okafor is on the court, it seems like he's just not getting the boards. He's not getting the easy buckets that he was before. So yeah, hopefully Jahlil sits out for this game.
All right, I'm going to give out mine, and then I want to talk about something else real quick before we get out of here. My 5X guy today is Tobias Harris, 6,200. Just locking that 5X, baby. Off the bench, all that usage. I could have went easy. I could have said Cousins, but I'm not going to go there. Now that we're done with the slate, we've talked about the games. The one thing that I want to bring back up that we kind of wrote off at the beginning of the slate was Karl-Anthony Towns on DraftKings. Like, we wrote that off. Like, we said, oh, his price is too high. Now that we've broke down the slate, that 9,900 doesn't seem as high.
Nah, I think I think the way this slate sets up, you're gonna be clicking on him quite a bit on DraftKings. On FanDuel, easily. Let's see what's his price on FanDuel.
Not high enough.
9,300. Yeah, so I mean $600 less on FanDuel. So yeah, really really good price over on FanDuel. Going to be super popular over there, and still somewhat popular with all this value that you're getting in Miami and Dallas. Like I just can go through probably 6 or 7 guys that I love under 4K. So I mean Dirk Nowitzki, Seth Curry, yeah, and then the Miami guys, are all really cheap too. So yeah, love Towns.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that back up because we're like, oh, 9,900 for Towns, and then you break down the slate and you're like, man, this guy has 60-point upside in this game, and he could really just be one of those guys that win you a tournament.
Yeah, more than anything too, it's the spot, right? So I think Steve, you're mainly a tournament player, right?
Yeah.
So I can see a lot of tournaments you just starting out with like a Joel Embiid, Karl-Anthony Towns, if you're able to do that, and then just go from there. Obviously on DraftKings, are they both centers or is one a power forward? Let's see. Yeah, it looks like you're able to do that. Yeah, Karl-Anthony Towns is power forward, so you'd be able to do that regardless because of the 2 center spots. So yeah, I love doing that in tournament situations. You can go Embiid, Towns, and DeMarcus Cousins if you want. So
FanDuel centers are going to be so interesting with Cousins, Towns, and Embiid all centers. Like, oh buddy, that's going to make FanDuel really fun to play tonight. But
right.
That's going to do it here for the game-by-game breakdown on the Morning Grind. Make sure you guys jump in the Roto Grinders Morning Grind Tuesday League over there on DraftKings. If you want the league, just look at my Twitter. I think I tweeted it out right before this podcast, so you guys can jump in that and play against everybody that listens to the podcast. It's a little 100-man league. I think we set it to top 15 gets paid out here. Killa B, I appreciate you joining me, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Stevie.
All right, man. We're going to have to get you back on here soon. We'll be back tomorrow to talk basketball with SBK and Notorious. The 3-man podcast returns for 2017. Good luck in your contest tonight, and we'll see you then.